Hello, my name is Tolg and I exist, therefore I think too much. I'm reading Beyond Good and Evil by Fred. I'm on chapter 58. And 58's pretty long, so I may just do 58. I could do 58 and 59. I normally take this 2 points at a time because I rant. And I cuss as I talk. And that's what I do. Someone did leave a comment suggesting someone who is also simultaneously reading Beyond Good and Evil, so apparently, and I would not doubt it, as the world is currently filled with 8 billion people, so if ever you think you are the first to do something, I highly doubt it. Having said that, someone in the comments suggested that there is another person making similar videos in reviewing Beyond Good and Evil from their own perspective. And if this does not satisfy you therein, go find something else. Free world. Ta-da! So, I have been foggy-brained, and the hope is that I am not as foggy-brained. I will not make an apology, but I will make an attempt. And that's what this will be. So it starts off, has it been observed to what extent outward idleness or semi-idleness is necessary to a real religious life? Depends on the religion. Alike for its favorite microscopic labor of self-examination. Depends on the religion. And for its soft placidity called prayer. Okay, well, I was told, and as long as I've been around the internet, I never thought to look it up. I'll probably look it up when I edit this. But I was told that the word prayer translates to conversation. And in being told this, it was supposed to be a conversation between you and God. And there is a verse in the Christian Bible, you go find it, that says you are supposed to pray in silence and not make a show of it. And I believe that has a hell of a lot to do with, talk in your head to God. That's what prayer is meant to be. It's a conversation between you and God, so why would you have it out loud? Unless you want to look like the crazy town crazy person. If that's what you're into, just be safe about it. And if it's like a kink, I am so absolutely sure that the rules are that you have to ask everyone else's permission to participate in it. So just, be safe and don't step on toes. The state of perpetual readiness for the coming of God. Oh. Depends on the religion. I mean the idleness with a good conscience, the idleness of olden times, and of blood. Idleness of blood. Not entirely sure what that translates to which the aristocratic sentiment that work is dishonoring. That's interesting, because, outside of aristocracy, idle hands are the devil's playthings, right? And I wonder if that was at the same time that aristocracy held the value that work was dishonoring. Unless this is meaning, whoa, no, it's not. Okay, in entirety it says that it vulgarizes body and soul. Intriguing. If the belief is in a Christian God, and simultaneously there is a belief that value is held in not working, then would your aim be to make work an option rather than a necessity, and therein damn an entire group of peoples knowingly? Would you not understand that you damning those peoples to vulgarity would be blood on your hands? And that consequently, the modern, noisy, time-engrossing, conceited, foolishly proud laboriousness educates and prepares for unbelief, disbelief, more than anything else. Oh yeah, if you don't have time to think, what the fuck do you have the ability to believe in? And again, if that's your sentiment, and you have power over others, wouldn't you want to make that a choice so that you are not held accountable for forcing others to sin? Either you truly believe this, or you are using this as a tool to further diminish other people's self-worth. Which, I mean, is a tool in and of itself, because if people have diminished self-worth, but are forced to diminish that self-worth simultaneously, then you live in a caste system rather than a class. And a caste system, well, the one that is primarily hearkened on when you concern yourself with caste, believes in reincarnation. So the role is deserved, and that is why it is set in stone. But if you are participating in a caste system and you don't simultaneously believe in reincarnation, and therein you have damned an entire group of peoples, isn't that a responsibility that you've taken on yourself, and therein diminished your own value because you did not, in a position of power, provide a means by which other people could save themselves, put themselves in a position where they might love the God you praise just as much as you do? In Christianity, isn't it a major sin to mislead people? To knowingly mislead them as well. Among these, for instance, who are at present living apart from religion in Germany, I find free thinkers of diversified species and origin. Species. Okay, I do believe cats think pretty intensely, as well as dogs. There was a point in which science had connected a cat's brain to a computer somehow. I'm not sure that anything that the brain understood was, that how do you file things in your brain? Like, what is memory? How do you access memory? If you take a brain outside of a person, can those memories be accessed? I'm sure they can, but each individual has a different way of thinking, so is that also going to be accessed differently per the brain? Right, sorry, free thinkers of diversified species and origin, but above all, a majority of those in whom laboriousness from generation to generation has dissolved the religious instincts. Free thinking dissolved religious instincts? Depends on how you define religiosity. If it's meditation, then no. But if it's habit, maybe, yeah. So that they no longer know the purpose or what purpose religions serve: crowd control. And only note their existence in the world with a kind of dull astonishment. No. You should never, because there's always intricacies that are super cool to learn about. And lore, everybody loves lore. They feel themselves already fully occupied, these good people, be it by their business or by their pleasures, not to mention the quote-unquote fatherland. Thinking patriotism towards your country is being too overwhelmed to be able to praise God. I stand by it. Freud would hate modern-day society in the U.S. And the newspapers and their family duties, it seems that they have no time whatever left for religion. And above all, it is not obvious to them whether it is a question of a new business or a new pleasure, for it is impossible. No. They say to themselves that people should go to church merely to spoil their tempers. They are by no means enemies of religious customs. Should certain circumstances, state affairs perhaps, require their participation in such customs, they do what is required, as so many things are done, with a patient and unassuming seriousness, and without much curiosity or discomfort. They live too much apart and outside to feel even the necessity for a for or against in such matters. It could have been summarized, but I don't remember the word. I'm doing real poor with understanding and pulling on words. They find the practice of religion irrelevant to everyday life. Among those indifferent persons, indifferent may be reckoned nowadays the majority of German Protestants of the middle classes, especially in the great laborious centers of trade and commerce, also the majority of laborious scholars, and the entire university personnel. Did Germany have a royal government, monarchy during the Victorian era? When it discusses the middle classes, is that in relation to upper class being noble? Just curiosity, not that it's necessarily entirely relevant. Middle classes, especially in the great laborious centers of trade and commerce, also the majority of laborious scholars and the entire university personnel, with the exception of the theologians, whose existence and possibility there always gives psychologists new and more subtle puzzles to solve. I like that. That's cute. On the part of pious or merely church-going people, there is seldom any idea of how much goodwill, one might say arbitrary will, is now necessary for a German scholar to take the problem of religion seriously. Is he using goodwill in lieu of respect? I feel like goodwill implies that you feel positively towards something, where respect doesn't necessarily hinge on someone feeling positively or negatively towards something. It's just acknowledgement that it exists in the way that it does, and allowing that existence to exist in the way that it does, you know. The allowing part is not that one would have power over another existence, but the allowing is knowing not to hinder it, or pursuing not hindering its existence. One might say arbitrary will is now necessary for a German scholar to take the problem of religion seriously. His whole profession, and as I have said, his whole workman-like laboriousness, to which he is compelled by his modern conscience, inclines him to a lofty and almost charitable serenity as regards religion. With which is occasionally mingled a slight disdain for the uncleanliness of spirit which he takes for granted wherever anyone still professes to belong to the church. Is it in the belonging to the church that one would be unclean, rather than choosing to go to the church of one's free will? It is only with the help of history, not through his own personal experience, therefore, that the scholar succeeds in bringing himself to a respectful seriousness and to a certain timid deference in presence of religions. I feel like timidity in presence of religions, deference will have to be defined. Timidity in respect to religions is not necessarily timidity towards the religion itself, but towards the people praising it, because if, one believes in a God, oftentimes they believe in that God being the reason for their existence. So if you get in between their religion and them, you are questioning their existence. And so it becomes, a fight of egoic structure. The timidity therein is, do you have enough standing? Do you have enough understanding to challenge their reason to exist? Most people would never want to do that out of, again, general respect for an individual and hopefully wanting existence to be pursued. When I question religion, it is never, and I've come across this recently, when I speak on not necessarily understanding Jesus to be God, as Jesus is praised in the U.S., many perceive that as me, and I was raised Christian, so I thoroughly understand, the weight of what it is that I am saying and how one could receive it emotionally. I'm not intending to debase any person or have someone feel that despair. I have lost so many things. One of which at one point was definitely my God. And you can't lose that, but I lost my entire church, my community, my reason to believe. And would go through years afterwards trying to figure out what to believe. Never really lost my God, and I guess it's inappropriate to say that, but I understand how it feels to be faced with an understanding that everything you are is nothing you knew. Heartbreak is one thing, but that is a sort of destruction that's hard to recoup from. So it is never my intention when I insult religion to tell any one individual that they are on the wrong track. As I believe life is subjective and something worth learning from, I think therein religion is a means by which one understands life and the reason to exist more thoroughly. To apply oneself to a meditative practice such as religion, I think is only responsible. And I think it ought to be pursued with respect to individuality and subjectivity to life. I am never intending to tear an individual down. I intend to critique the logic or lack thereof in an idea. Which, when it comes to metaphysical, is very difficult to do. So even in that, I know and respect that I stand to be very wrong, which is fine. I am perfectly okay with being corrected. I implore that I be corrected, because how would one know what to correct unless I am open and comfortable with being wrong? Not saying I'm proud of being wrong, but if ever it comes to the point in which someone knows I am wrong, please fucking correct me. I cannot grow without that. In saying that, there is a difference between an argument and a fight. When two views of opposition come together for a discussion, presenting facts on either side, or lack of facts on either side, to reach a conclusion at the end, to either agree or disagree, or agree to disagree. That is an argument. A fight is when it involves an egoic structure and emotions, and it is entirely disrespectful. So, you want to get into an argument? I will be afraid, but I will do my best on my end. You want to get into a fight? I would much prefer not to. Please and thank you. Timidity and deference in presence of religions. But even when his sentiments have reached the stage of gratitude towards them, he has not personally advanced one step nearer to that which still remains itself as church, or as piety. Perhaps even the contrary, the practical indifference to religious matters in the midst of which he has been born and brought up usually sublimates itself in his case into circumspection and cleanliness, which shuns contact with religious men and things. And it may be just the depth of his tolerance and humanity which prompts him to avoid the delicate trouble which tolerance itself brings with it. I think that's control issues. If you grew up through childhood with something, you will reach young adulthood attempting to challenge that and challenge its authority to find your own authority in your own life. With respect to religion, it makes sense that someone would, rebel. And if society holds you to a sense of morality based on a religious construct that the entire country follows, it would make sense therein that you would want to hold on to the spirituality of it, the understanding of it, without wanting to be held to the church of it as a means of defining your authority for self. And it may be just the depth of his tolerance and humanity which prompts him to avoid the delicate trouble which tolerance itself brings with it. Every age has its own divine type of naivety, for the discovery of which other ages may envy it. And how much naivety, adorable, childlike, and boundlessly foolish naivety, is involved in this belief of the scholar, in his superiority. I can't turn the page. Involved in this belief of the scholar, in his superiority, in the good conscience of his tolerance, in the unsuspecting, simple certainty with which his instinct treats the religious man as a lower and less valuable type, beyond, before, and above which he himself has developed. He, the little arrogant dwarf and mob man, the sedulously alert, head and hand drudge of ideas, of modern ideas. His insults remind me of Waits. What the fuck is his first name? Tom Waits. There's this one song, and I will edit it in when I find it. But he calls like the doorman a really funny name. It could be The Piano is Drinking. I really like that song. I'm pretty sure it is The Piano is Drinking. Or has been drinking, whatever it is. But okay. Well, that actually puts me 4 minutes away from 30 minutes. And I normally try to keep these at 30 minutes. So I guess I'm sorry that I ranted so much and did not get to 2 points. As for the apology just exists to say that I did not keep to normalcy that I introduced. Otherwise, ta-da, that was a video. Again, if you have something worth saying, fucking say it, please. Not saying if you have nothing worth saying, don't say it, because that could be worth something to someone else. And also, I love absurdity. So if you just want to leave a comment that makes me laugh, that's cool too. Or makes yourself laugh. Fun stuff. All right. Anyways, enjoy your night and drink well and eat well and sleep well and protect your peace and challenge your own authority. Lately, I have realized that people with authority issues could even hold authority issues with themselves and end up in this kind of twister effect of not wanting to answer to others, but also not wanting to answer to themselves, which is a hell. So, do your best to get well and be well and do well. Bye-bye.